You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. You can make this possible. All right, folks, let's go to Kenosha, Wisconsin, where Jacob Blake has actually filed a lawsuit against the cop who shot him, that's left him paralyzed. We might remember that led to, this was the video that took place there in Kenosha, Wisconsin, where the police officers there were trying to detain him. You see him walking over to the side of his car, and they're following right behind him with the gun as if, no weapon or anything. And all of a sudden, the cop just unloads on him in the car. And that, of course, sparked massive riots there in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Rusten Sheskey, of course, was the former Kenosha officer. Of course, this took place while he was trying to get into his SUV following a domestic dispute. Of course, captured on video by a bystander. Blake, as I said, paralyzed, filed a lawsuit on Thursday accusing the officer of excessive force. The, of course, charges were not filed against the officer. They basically defended him, but this is, hopefully you will see some civil action here. That's really his only recourse left, Robert.
Absolutely, and I think this is a pretty clear-cut case, and this is one of those cases going to be headed towards settlement because cities, as we've seen, one, you have the issue of qualified immunity for the officer, so the officer doesn't have to pay directly out. So whenever you see these police brutality cases, just like in Breonna Taylor, just like with George Floyd, you're seeing the city paying out multi-million-dollar settlements in order to prevent these things from going to trial, and that's what we're probably going to see in this case. It's terrible to have a nation where the police departments and cities are more interested in maintaining white supremacy and maintaining racism than in saving money. They would rather pay the fine or pay the cost of doing business to be able to continue to shoot black people than they would to make the type of structural reforms that are necessary to stop these things from happening going forward. So what we're going to have to start doing, and it's a hard thing to try to say to a family where they're talking about life-changing amounts of money. Eventually, we're going to take one of these to trial. So instead of taking a $10 million settlement, instead of taking a $20 million settlement, going all the way to trial, winning at the jury level, forcing them to waive sovereign immunity, and then literally taking a city into receivership because of the lawsuit that you filed against them. If you start filing lawsuits and winning judgments in the billions of dollars, we see this with Dominion voting machines. They're not taking settlements. They're suing these people for $1, $2, $3 billion at a time. That's what you have to start doing if you want to see real actions, because since George Floyd was killed, we've seen no federal legislation signed into law. We've seen very little state legislation signed into law. We've seen very little citywide legislation signed into law around the country. And when cities did try to address police brutality, we saw a nationwide police slowdown, which led to a spike in violent crime across the country last year, which is being blamed on black mayors across the country because police won't show up and do their damn job. So the only way to make this finally stop is going to be bankrupting a city. Have his family members start carrying off the marble pillars at the courthouse. Start renaming streets after his auntie and uncle because they own the city now, and then you'll see police brutality be moderated and mitigated down.
Michael.
Roland, this ties right into the previous segment that we just talked about, because the prosecutor here in the Wisconsin area refused to press charges against the officers, but the prosecutor is elected. Once again, this ties into politics. It's beyond just voting. This ties into politics. So when we have people fighting for police reform and people want to defund the police, or people want to reduce responsibilities and reallocate resources, you're dealing with laws. You're dealing with policies. Well, who puts those in place? People who are elected and people who are appointed by people who are elected. Well, how do they get in office? We have to vote the right people into office and vote the wrong people out of office, hold them accountable, and push these policies, vote more progressive prosecutors into office, okay, to prosecute police officers like this. When I saw this, and when I went through, it was in the last, actually when the prosecutor, I watched the press conference the prosecutor had, and refused to press charges. and I went through and read everything. I read statements from what he said about Jacob Blake, because Jacob Blake said, according to the prosecutor, Jacob Blake said he had a knife in his hand but couldn't remember whether the knife was open or not. Okay. When I saw put all the pieces together, I came to the conclusion that it was excessive use of force because Blake was shot 7 times at close range. And to me, that was an excessive use of force. Okay. So this would be a civil lawsuit. They'll probably have to pay out money in the civil lawsuit, but then you have to look at reforming policies in the police department so things like this won't happen. And then also, I don't remember what the percentage of African American police officers are at this police department, but the other thing is changing the culture of policing. And I've said this before, at the end of the day, in a lot of these police departments, many of us are going to have to apply to these police departments as they start firing more of these white supremacists. Okay, who are they going to replace them with? Where are they going to come from? Many of us are going to have to become police officers to be the officers that we want to see, the guardians, not the warriors, not to inflict police brutality upon people, but to serve and protect, to actually be the type of police officers that we want to be. And those are less opportunities for white supremacists to be officers.
All right, folks, back to that Roland Martin Unfiltered video in just one moment.
It's time to be smart. When we control our institutions, we win. This is the most important news show on television of any racial background. Y'all put $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $15, $20, $30 on this and keep this going. What you've done, Roland, since this crisis came out in full bloom. Anybody watching this, tell your friends. Go back and look at the last 2 weeks, especially of Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, hell, go back and look at the last 2 days. You've had sitting United States senators today, Klobuchar and Harris. Whatever you have, you can bring to Roland Martin Unfiltered to support it, please do, because this information may literally save your life.
Watch Roland Martin Unfiltered daily at 6 p.m. Eastern on YouTube, Facebook, or Periscope, or go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com.